Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most amazing archaeological discoveries in history related to the Bible.
All right, let's see it.
This is the Merneptah stele, the inscription that mentioned that Israel as a nation had been laid waste by Pharaoh Merneptah in 1208 BC.
So this is all perfectly accurate except for one critical flaw, and that's the notion that this inscription identifies Israel as a nation. Most Egyptologists and biblical scholars would say this inscription identifies Israel explicitly as not a nation, and here's why. This is an English translation of the context. This is from Anson Rainey. And you'll see right in the middle, Ashkelon is conquered, Gezer is seized, Yanoam is made non-existent, Israel is laid waste, his seed is no more. And next to those four names, Rainey provides in parentheses these two different graphemes. These are called determinatives. And in ancient Egyptian, to identify what category certain nouns belonged to, you would include a determinative. And the three determinatives that go along with the names that precede Israel look like a sideways three with a line coming up off of it and angling to the left. This determinative identifies these places as associated with a fortified city. They are associated with a specific geographic location. They are a kingdom, a city-state, a nation, whatever. The determinative that occurs next to the name Israel shows two people above three vertical dash marks. This identifies Israel as a people that is not associated with a capital city. Whether they are nomadic or sedentary, but just not associated with a capital or with any fortified cities, this is not a nation in the sense of a people that occupies a specific territory, has a capital city, has administrative infrastructure, and all that kind of stuff. This is just a people group.
Well, how could that be if the Exodus took place in the 1200s, like many people say? The much more consistent date for the Exodus, according to the Bible and archaeology, is the Exodus took place in the 1400s BC, particularly according to the Bible, 1446 BC.
So the reality is neither proposed dates actually work with the archaeology of Egypt, but people arrive at the 1446 BCE date by looking at 1 Kings 6:1 that says that Solomon's temple began to be built 480 years after the Israelites left Egypt. And based on their calculation of when Solomon began to reign, when Solomon's temple began, they go backwards and they get to 1446. But again, whether you're talking about the 1400s or the 1200s, the archaeology in Egypt does not support the presence of Israel in Egypt as their main enslaved force, much less the destruction of Egypt in this time period, much less the exodus of around 2 million people from the land. The exodus is not supported by the archaeology or any other data. It is a literary creation.
That would have given the Israelites enough time to get into the land and become a nation, so later Merneptah could brag that he had beaten them.
So here Frank Turek is leveraging the misrepresentation of Israel as a nation in the inscription on the Merneptah stele as evidence for the earlier date, since Israel needed time to transition from a wandering people group into a nation. But again, the inscription quite explicitly identifies Israel as a people group and distinguishes them from the other nations that were in the territory.
This is amazing. It's 3,200 years old. And it's got Israel on it.
So Frank is absolutely right here. This is an amazing artifact. It comes from the end of the 13th century BCE, and it represents our earliest known reference of any kind whatsoever to a people group known as Israel. And it represents pretty definitive evidence that toward the end of the 13th century BCE, there was a people group known as Israel occupying the territory that is traditionally associated with it, and that people group was known to Egypt. This is not evidence in support of the Exodus, which, again, according to all the available data and the scholarly consensus, is a tradition, a literary creation, not historical. And the fit for this video has been Venom.